Welcome to Shelf Life, the monthly series where I look back at games I covered about 6 months ago and tell you whether they stayed in my collection or whether I pledged them or I'm getting a review copy if they were on crowdfunding. And as always, at the end of the video, we'll have the contest results for people who voted on these brackets and let you know who's winning a free game from my collection. And I also have the link to next month's contest for May if you'd like to go ahead and get your votes in. We've got 8 games to keep or call, so let's see which ones of them had shelf life. So our first matchup this month is Bullet versus The Spill, and let's talk through both of them, but I think almost anyone who watches the channel already knows where this one is going. So The Spill is a pandemic-style Euro where you're trying to rescue animals and clean up oil spilling into the ocean. It's got this fun tower that you drop dice into to control where the oil is placed, and besides that, it's a fairly standard pandemic-style game with actions and varied roles with different powers. And yeah, this one was a pretty big miss for me. Even my family didn't enjoy it very much. At least in the prototype I played, there wasn't that much variety. The character powers didn't really make them feel that different. They tended to still do basically the same kind of stuff. I did very much enjoy the tower and the dice dropping, but the strategy and like the actions and the play of the game just left me a bit wanting. Hopefully it got a lot better after that point with the actual production of the game, but that was a big pass for me. But how about Bullet? Well, this one is not going to be for everyone. I've recommended it to some people and they've loved it, others and they've been lukewarm on it. But this is a token manipulation game. You basically got these bullets, these little tokens or tiles falling down from the top of your board. Think a game like a Super Puzzle Fighter or Tetris or that kind of thing. And you're taking actions to move them around the board, to form patterns and then clear them to send them over to the opponent's side of the board or in the solo and co-op play over to the boss. And if you don't know already, this was my favorite game from last year. Continues to be a big one for me. I'm anxiously awaiting Bullet Star. By the time this video is done, maybe I'll have it. I love the variety in the bosses, I love the variety in the heroes, both competitive and solo, and co-op, I guess that's 3, are all a lot of fun. So not much of a surprise, this one is a big keeper for me. Bullet, one of my favorites. So Bullet took down The Spill, not too much of a surprise there. Let's get to our next matchup. This time we have Voidfall versus Descent Legends of the Dark. And let's start with Voidfall. This is a Euro game, and it's got kind of like action cards, and you can play competitive or solo or co-op. And honestly, I only played the solo and the co-op, but it's really cool. The game did have a bit of icon overload, and was a little bit challenging to teach and get into the game. It's also pretty long. The enemy can be very tough, but I love the build-up here. I love the actions. I love the empire building. The technology trees are really varied and interesting. They're going to have a bunch of scenarios. I've only played a couple, but those look really good. They're going to have a bunch of different empires. Some of the ones I played weren't that varied, but apparently the more advanced ones will have bigger differences between them. So all that is to say that I really liked Voidfall, and when they offered a review copy, I jumped on it. Will I keep it? I don't know. I could see me giving this to Peter or one of my other kind of more Euro game buddies and playing it sometimes with them. It's all going to depend on how much I enjoy the solo, because I really don't see this getting to the table for my family. I think it'll be a little bit beyond them. But that's more of a personal thing. I think Voidfall is a great game, and it's a keeper for now. I'm really excited to play it more. And on the other side, we have Descent Legends of the Dark. This is a sort of Descent 3rd Edition, although they're not calling it that. This is a fully cooperative, app-supported dungeon crawler where you're going on adventures and scenarios, and they have this kind of like card-flipping stamina system where you use powers on cards, and the cards kind of get filled with fatigue, and then you gotta flip them to get rid of it. And overall, I enjoy parts of this game. I think the story is pretty weak, but I like the characterization. I think the app is very smooth, but I don't really like the upgrading and how like minute and annoying it can get to like click through everything. I like the mechanics, but I think they're not that well done because the characters are not really as interesting as they could be. The scenario design starts out really well, but gets kind of weaker toward the midpoint in the campaign. So this is very much a love-hate relationship with this game. We haven't finished the full campaign yet, and I think I might want to at some point, but my friend has a copy. Would I buy this? Absolutely not. I actually think that like Imperial Assault and Descent 2nd Edition are better versions of this game than this new edition. This one has much nicer miniatures, has much nicer table presence, but I think the fatigue system is a total wreck for the most part, except for a few characters. It doesn't really work very well. I think the scenario design is pretty hit or miss. So this is one that I do want to play more. I'm not totally done with it, but it's absolutely, I mean, I never owned it in the first place, and I never would want to. So it's definitely counting as a call for me, which I guess gives Voidfall the win. For now, I kind of expect to not own either of them eventually, but good job, Voidfall. Our third matchup is Roll Camera versus Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. So let's start with Roll Camera. This is a dice placement kind of Euro game themed after creating a film, and it's for solo or cooperative play, and you're like putting the dice down to like film your scenes. And what's kind of fun is they have a lot of goofy humor in here. So they have like these cards that have silly effects, and then as you put the like little shots for your film together and kind of like almost build out your storyboard, you get to like have titles of your film, and you can kind of like make up the story that happens with it. I love all of that. I love like kind of the fun, goofy elements of the game. But the actual gameplay itself, the dice placement, the differences between characters, I don't know. It left me a little bit wanting over time. It just didn't seem to have enough staying power, enough interest. I did get to play with the expansion, which they did a second Kickstarter for, so that might make things way more interesting. But at least for me, as someone who's usually not wowed by Euros that often, the dice placement here was not enough of a clincher, so this one got called. But how about Tales from the Red Dragon Inn? This was another crowdfunding game in the Red Dragon universe, and that's the same universe as Battle for Greyport, one of my favorite deck builders. And this is another fully cooperative dungeon crawler. In many ways lighter than Descent. You just have these action cards, and you can use one or a couple of them each turn. But I really liked the action cards. I liked how different they made the characters feel. The combat had a nice visceral quality, especially in that they use traps and things, and you can push enemies into them. I love that in any crawler I can get, where like the battlefield feels more impactful to the gameplay. And the way the campaign goes and your characters get stronger and stronger seems really good. The story seemed pretty fun from what I saw. This is another one that I was totally happy to say yes to a review copy, and I might have actually pledged this myself. You know what, actually scratch that. Peter loved this game more than me. I would have let him pledge it. But with them offering a copy, this is like Voidfall, one that I think I'll play through the entire thing, and then maybe let Peter keep it because he loved it even more than I enjoyed it. So I'm calling it a keeper also, just like Voidfall, but it's another one that I don't necessarily expect to stay around for the long haul. But yes, Red Dragon Inn, Tales from the Red Dragon Inn is taking Roll Camera down. So here we go, last matchup. And it's the Red Burnoose versus Agemonia. Let's talk about the Red Burnoose first. This is a cooperative war game that's quick playing and with deck building. What? I like war games. I like cooperation. I like deck building. This was a slam dunk until it wasn't. Because, yeah, the deck building is pretty anemic in my opinion. The game had some balance issues, and I just did not have fun with this one at all. It was really, really a bummer because I liked the subject matter. It was like a battle that had never been covered before, that I'm aware of at least. I thought the ideas behind the design were good. When I read the rulebook, I was excited to play it, but then when it actually got to the table, I mean, there's player elimination, there's just lots of issues, at least for my taste, with this one. I am glad that it funded. I'm glad that some people are going to get to play the final version, but it was not a winner for me. So that's a definite call right there. But how about Agemonia? Well, this one should be a no-brainer if you watch any of my top lists last year. This was one of my favorite Kickstarters, one of my favorite crowdfunding games from last year. This is a cooperative adventure game with sort of an old art aesthetic, kind of like Fighting Fantasy or Lone Wolf. I loved that. It's got a lot of exploration, not a ton of combat, although it is there. It's got a really cool stamina system. You can find new things each time you play a scenario. It's apparently got some branching. The characters aren't like hugely different, but in the streamlined system they've created, they're different enough that they're interesting. So yeah, I mean, this is one that, will I play through it more than 2 times and then maybe like sell it? Probably not. I don't see like tons and tons of replay here, but I love the gameplay. I played actually a good bit of it, maybe 3 or 4 scenarios on Tabletop Simulator, and I will give the game credit. The core mechanics are so strong that even when I was playing a scenario where I'd already seen everything, it was still fun just to like try out different ideas or go different places or see like how the enemies activated differently. That's another thing. I love the AI system here. It's somewhat predictable, but also can kind of challenge you, but it's also super quick to resolve. So yeah, this one is a slam dunk for me. Again, I can't promise that I'll keep it forever, but I would have pledged this one whether they offer me a review copy or not. This is out of the 3 crowdfunding games I mentioned today, this is the one that I liked the best. So Agemonia destroys the Red Burnoose, a big winner for me. So hey, same as last month, we had 50% winners, 50% losers. Each of the brackets was a real bracket with no lying on my part in the voting. But if you want to see who the winner is, stay tuned and let's see the results of the contest. So here we go. First, in Group 1, we had Bullet, with 92% of you thinking I would keep that one. The Spill only got 4%, and Called Them Both only got 4%. This might be the biggest margin, yes. We know I love Bullet. I just played it tonight, actually, and it's a great game. But the other groups were a bit more interesting. Group 2 called them both. The incorrect answer was the most popular with 46%. Voidfall came in second, the correct answer with 32%. And Descent was 22%. So about a fifth of you thought I might keep that one. As for Group 3, called them both, came up with slightly more than half of the votes. But the Red Dragon Inn was the correct answer with 38% of you getting that one. Roll Camera only got 11%. Not a great showing there. And finally, Group 4, Agemonia pulled out the majority with 54%. Very close behind was Called Them Both with 43%, which means the lowest vote of the contest, I think. The Red Burnoose got only 3% of people thinking I would keep it. And this month we had a ton of people who got all of them right, so we're not going to show the 4 out of 6s or 5 out of 6s. There were a lot of them too. But our 6 out of 6s possible winners are Paul Round, Jose Godoy, Wade Stewart, Nick Skeen, Abby Longmore, Ryan Picklesheimer, Dan Halig, or Heligi, I should ask him because I talked to him quite a bit, Wei Jancia, Rafael Pabon, Rats, Jack Rudder, Joel Hoskins, David McGee, Jonathan Trinastic, and Nick Sasala. And here are our numbers. Paul, Nick, and Rats asked not to be considered for the contest. And Raphael, Jack, Joel, and Jonathan all are Patreon supporters with double entries, so they have twice the chance. I'm going to roll a d20. If we get a 17 through 20, we'll just roll again. So here we go. It's a 14. And there we go, Patreon supporter Jonathan Trinastic. You are our Shelf Life winner for this month. I'll be emailing you soon to see which game you'd like for my collection. But thanks to everybody. We had almost 150 entrants this month, so quite a lot. And again, don't forget, the link for next month's contest is right in the video description right now. So if you want to get your vote in so you don't forget later and have your chance to win, go ahead and click. But thanks so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next month with more Shelf Life.